Okay, I guess we can get started. Very welcome, everybody, in this seminar, which we organized in collaboration with the Global Passenger Network. My name is Jan de Man. I work for the Busworld Academy, and I will be your moderator this afternoon. Now, since March or earlier, depending on where you are in the world, coach operations have dropped to quasi-zero. All trips, at least here in the Northern Hemisphere until the summer, have been cancelled, and no bookings for July or August are being made. In an optimistic scenario, business at some scale might start up again at the earliest in September. Now, that means that coach companies, especially the ones with activities in tourism, have to survive with hardly any income until, let's say, 4 or 6 months. Knowing that a vast majority of these coach companies are micro, small, or middle-sized companies makes this situation even more challenging. 3 types of activities or actions are crucial to the survival of these companies. First of all, there's trying to obtain external help coming from our national governments or other institutions. But this was the subject of the seminar of April the 9th, which you can still see on the Busworld Academy website. The second type of actions is finding creative ways to generate some income. And a third action is finding ways to reduce costs with a focus on our fixed costs. We have invited executive representatives of 6 companies from all over the world to explain how they do this. I would, first of all, in this part, like to give the word to my colleague, Hannes, who will explain some technical matters concerning this webinar. Hannes, could you take over?
Yes, hello everyone. Just hold on a second, I will share my screen. Okay. There we go. So I'm quickly going to explain the functions we will use in Zoom today during the webinar. So as an attendee, you have at the bottom of your screen the toolbar of Zoom. Here you have the chat function. When you click there, a new screen at the right of your screen will appear. Here you can just chat amongst each other, amongst all the attendees, and also say something to the panelists if you want. So that's here. The second option function you can use is the Q&A. With the Q&A, we will use this function to really ask questions to the speakers today. So when you want to ask a question to the speaker, use this Q&A function. Don't use the chat. So when you click on this screen will appear. Here you can ask your question. So you just write it here. If you want, you can also do it anonymously, so nobody knows who you are. Just hit the send button, and then it will appear in the next screen where you'll see all the questions asked by everyone. Another option is here to like a question of somebody else. So that's called upvoting, of course. So when you like this question, it will go up and up and up in the list. So the more important questions are on top. You can also see your own questions here in the second tab. We will also launch 3 polls during the webinar. So when we launch a poll, this screen will appear. Just answer the question here and hit the submit button. Okay, so that's it for my part. Enjoy the webinar.
Thank you so much, Hannes. I'm very glad that we can welcome over 930 participants worldwide. We're still trying to connect with 2 of the speakers, but that will come. I would like to give the word first to Luis Pedrero. Luis Pedrero is the former president of the Global Passenger Network. He's the CEO of Car Tour in Madrid and operates a company with about 50 vehicles and about 70 employees. First, we're going to talk about finding creative ways to create some income. Luis, the word is yours. Hannes, can you unmute?
Yes.
Okay.
Hello. Hi, everyone. Thanks, Jan. I'm Luis Pedrero. As is mentioned, I'm a CEO at Cartour. I'm going to try to share my screen because I have a presentation. All right, here. I hope you can see this. I'm going to start from the beginning. There we go. As I said, very briefly, because we have a limited time in this webinar, we are going to talk about how to generate income and how to reduce costs in the coach companies. My company Cartour is a coach operator based in Madrid. It was established in 1981 with more than 40 coaches, and we are specialists in charter tours, discretionary services, excursions, school and workers services. We are very proud to be a member of the Global Passenger Network, which is a network of coach operators in 41 different countries. This network was established in 2006. The companies are quality driven, and we always meet together and get together to share best practices, experiences, and knowledge about the industry. We amongst the 41 countries we have partnerships with trusted companies, and I'm going to try to explain how some of these companies have generated income in these times of crisis during the crisis of COVID-19. The first example I'm going to bring is Italy. Our friend and colleague in Italy from company Linea Azzurra, Fabio, he made a project with the cruise ship passengers repatriation. It was how did he approach the client? It was my main question when I talked to him about this project. Originally, it was not his client, the cruise ship company, but a colleague of his in the same area in the north of Italy called him because he had this request from his client, but he had canceled all the insurance policies in his company. It was then when he sent I think 3 or 4 coaches to Savona, where the first ship of this cruise ship company disembarked, and with a total of 40 coaches, they held a briefing with the drivers, and they told that they would be repatriating a lot of passengers, and some of them, probably more than 80, were COVID-19 positive passengers. So most of the drivers and coach companies just left, didn't operate the service. But our colleague in Linea Azzurra said, okay, let's wait. Let's see how they are going to provide the necessary measures for protection. And they waited there. Finally, because there were not enough coaches, the cruise ship company, handled to charter a plane or some planes to repatriate the passengers. But our colleague from Linea Azzurra and his coaches there were able to transfer the people to the airport. After that, with the relationship with the client already made, he offered a one single point, or what we like to call a one-stop shop for all the services around Europe with the global passenger network. So the customer found it really interesting, and our colleague could make all the repatriation for other 4 cruise ships that have disembarked in Italy in the last couple of weeks, and all that could be combined with various companies in the network of GPN from Austria, Hungary, Romania, Bulgaria, Slovenia, Croatia, and Czech Republic. Also, Germany and Denmark made some project as well, but the services were cancelled. The most important thing is this was a proactive action from our colleague, who offered all the services and the network to the cruise ship company, and offered them a one-stop shop for all the repatriation. The organization and the logistics has been really difficult due to the restrictions, due to the different legislations in each country. But because we are a network and we share all the information, Fabio was able to go to the border, then change passengers to the next GPN member coach. It was really a good project, and he has even developed an app for the geolocalization of the colleague drivers waiting for the passengers to be transferred to their coaches. This is the first project I wanted to share. Second project is from our colleague in France, Seybas. They provided medical sleeper coaches. Of course, first of all, you need to have sleeper coaches to provide this, but it was really a proactive project as well, because they contacted the Ministry of Health in their regions to offer their services of these sleeper coaches for the hospitals. It was in the area of Reims that the medical authorities contacted them back and asked them for this service. After making all the necessary disinfection and installing the equipment in the coaches, you can see there the pictures, they could provide this service for the hospitals and provide some relief for the area of Reims, where the sanitary measures were really overwhelmed. They even provided an emergency livery in the outside of the coach to give them priority. And of course, all the drivers were provided with the necessary and adequate protection. You can see there how the coaches ended up after this project. The next project I want to share with you is also a proactive project. It's a marketing campaign on safety. Our colleague in Norway, Unibus, decided to launch this campaign. You can see there with the name of have you considered organizing safe and sound travel for your company? This was offered to schools, to companies, to public administrations to explain them that coach travel, not bus, not regular lines, but coach travel is the safer means of transport, because it provides the necessary protection, the reduced groups, and you can our colleague here launched this campaign to tell their clients that they could rely on the disinfection, on the eco-friendly, all the benefits that our coaches have. With this campaign, our colleague could handle to have new customers that instead provided or wanted to provide the transportation to their companies, even schools, because in Sweden the schools didn't close. Even schools decided to contact coach companies and create new routes for the kids to go to school due to this campaign. Another project from our colleague in Poland was making a cooperation, a partnership with restaurants in the area of Krakow to deliver food to hospitals. The restaurants wanted to cook for the hospitals but they needed the food to be delivered, and our colleague could partner with them using their fleet of minivans, and they could deliver the food to Krakow's main hospital. Finally, our colleague in Czech Republic also made another project, a proactive project. They contacted the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and they offered their network of coach companies through the GPN, through the Global Passenger Network, to repatriate all the Czech Republic people around Europe. It was also a good project because they could combine and go to the borders from many different countries, and Netherlands, Austria, even Spain. We made a project with them as well. We took some passengers to the border, and they picked them up there. So it was also a proactive approach to trying to get more income in these times of crisis. I'm going to finish here. I will be taking all the questions after the seminar is ended. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Luis. This gives an overview from what we have in this part of Europe. Let's go to another part of the world. I'd like to give the word to Mr. Mohamed Afzal, who's the chairman and president of Parveen Group. a group that operates about 1,500 coaches, manages about 5,000 employees, and Mohammed is also the Secretary General of the Bus Operators Confederation of India. Mohammed, how do you do this in India?
Yeah, good evening, Jan. Thank you. Good evening, all panelists and the participants. Well, in India, the scenario is totally different. The total operations of passenger vehicle have almost come to halt. Hardly 1% of the operations are in place. Those are pertaining to critical operations. One was the important movement of repatriates. The entire consulates coordinated with the tour operators all over India, and we were able to share our requirements from each part of it. Wherever the consulate general wanted their expats to be brought in and sent back to their home, chartered flights were organized by them, and we were able to provide coaches. So in coordination with these operators, wherever the consulates wanted the buses, we were able to share our business and support the expats. That was one type of business which we could do during this COVID. The second type of business what we were able to handle, which we are handling now, is providing cabs, tourist cabs for transporting the doctors from their home to the medical places and back to their home. Maxi cabs as well as the cabs are being utilized for these critical purposes, just keeping in mind the distancing of the passengers, and the patients are being taken care by the not transporting. Certain patients are picked up by vans through the doctors and they are transferred to the hospitals. The third position is like we were also able to support for transporting the equipments and other essential commodities, and of course the pharmacy and civil supplies. So these are the areas which we were able to support at this time of, and it has been sort of a thought sharing and a business sharing with all these operators. As well, we, as Louis said, that we also have volunteered to provide what we call sleeper coaches as arrangements for the patients to be taken care of. Government has already come forward with the railways. They have provided these railways for providing as hospitals temporary arrangement. In a similar way, we operators have also volunteered to the government to provide the sleeper coaches. So this is the way now we are trying to find out and scout for some small business where the business can keep rolling. As of now, at least, it seems that it may take at least another 2 months from now on to actually start moving towards the travel and tourism industry. Until then, we don't see much of sales or business happening.
Slide share.
Yeah. Slide. You can do. I'll just put on a slide to make you understand exactly the situations. The entire country, you could see hardly less than. These are the photographs which are really showing the what you call the foreigners being picked up and dropped them at the airport. And these are the ways now we are actually maintaining these vehicles. So for the pandemic, we are preparing all our vehicles. Vehicles are used for movements during this pandemic, are periodically sanitized every trip without any hindrances. Passenger employees are entering into the vehicle, are made to use hand sanitizers, provided safety masks, and also scanned for body temperature with the help of non-contact thermometers. Only 50% of the seating capacity is allowed for use in every vehicle to maintain the social distancing throughout the journey. The coach and cab drivers are provided and made to use hand safety gloves, face masks throughout the journey. So these are the certain emergency efforts we are putting into to see that we are taking the passengers safe and to the journey. That's it. Thank you. Last one.
Thank you very much, Mohammed. Let's go Still a bit further east, I would like to introduce you to Hien Tring, which we may call Brian. Brian is the representative of Haivan, a coach company that represents about 250 vehicles and 1,000 employees. Very active in Vietnam. It has been quite difficult to establish the connection with Vietnam. Brian, can you hear us well? And
yes, I can hear perfectly. Finally, thank you for having me here today.
Go on.
So in Vietnam, we've been closing down since about a month ago. So the government ordered us to stop all passenger transportation in Vietnam. So because of that, we turn ourselves into moving packages and mail in Vietnam. Previously, we have had some a small fraction of our business also come from moving packages and goods, but it's just never been our strong suits or our focus until now. Since the beginning of the closing down, we have been promoting ourselves on our Facebook page, our offices in all the regions that we operate. So basically, our main customers are, small businesses, just regular people wanting to move documents, mail, contracts, paperwork, and some farmers wanted to move their goods from their provinces to Hanoi and main cities. So basically, small businesses and mostly individual. And for pricing, we are going with the minimum just to cover our costs. We are not aimed to make any profit at the moment. And this initiative is to help people as well as keeping our business alive. So for competitor, they're not too worried about us because we're moving a very small amount of packages and mail compared to all the traditional carrier large logistic company. So we play a very small part in this market, so they don't really feel threatened by our existence. We basically compete directly with other inner cities company that also after us are also opening up their businesses to move packages and mail. One of our advantages is we have permits that we can run more frequently compared to large logistic company. We can move goods much quicker. So we've been getting quite a few customers, and it's keeping our business somewhat alive with minimum income just to keep us operate.
Okay, thank you, Brian. Is there anything you would like to add?
No, I think that's all.
No, okay, thank you. So you were taking the focus to, let's say, transportation of goods. The needs there are urgent and maybe bigger due to e-commerce and due to the specific situation. And you mentioned as well that there is no competition there with the freight sector because the need is different right now. Thank you so much for this contribution. Let's go to Morocco. Tommy Murat is the GPN representative in Morocco. He's the vice president of GM2 Tours, and GM2 Tours is a leading company in tourism in Morocco. Tommy, how do you try to gain some income? And I also understood that there is a very specific tool that has been created in Morocco for the services now.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Jan. Actually, for us in Morocco, we still have a few activities during the crisis, such as military transport and transport of prisoners. Actually, this activity covers 10 to 15% of the normal activity, but it's better than nothing. Actually, in Morocco, we have a governmental office which called the La SNTL. It's a National Office of Transport and Logistics, which is a public platform where all the governmental demands are gathered, such as the military transport, for example, the transport of prisoners and others. So that's the main thing we are working on right now during the lockdown. And actually, we also do some volunteering, offering free transport to people who are stuck in other countries, in other cities of Morocco. So that's it.
Thank you so much. This platform you're talking about, Tommy, has it been created specifically for this crisis situation, or did it exist before?
No, it does exist before. Yeah, it exists since a long time ago.
Okay, but now it is working more specifically on the needs for this specific situation.
It's our only channel of activities right now. We don't have any issues especially for touristic transports. It's very complicated. So yeah, it's the only thing we are working with right now.
Thank you very much, Tommy. I see, ladies and gentlemen, that there is quite some questions coming into the Q&A, which are addressing the matter of starting up again. What will we have to do? What can we expect? And so on. This is exactly the subject of the seminar of next Thursday on the conditions to restart businesses. So if it's okay with you, I would like to take your questions to next week's webinar at the same time next week. There is one question that I would like to ask, which we have taken from the Q&A list. The rest of the questions will be answered by the speakers written and will be published on the Busworld Academy and probably the GPN website as well. I'd like to ask the question to maybe to Louis and maybe then to Tommy or Brian or Mohammed. Do you think that because of reasons of social distancing, that we will need more services in the future? And of course, this will slowly then go down again. But do you think that after this crisis, immediately after this crisis, the need for coaches might be bigger due to rules of social distancing or not? Louis, can I ask this to you?
Sure. Actually, I think in the very short term, it could happen that for certain services, and I have experienced that in my own company, for a route of workers that we normally do to a factory, they requested to start again a couple of weeks ago, and we needed to double the number of buses for them because of the distancing. In Spain, currently, it is only 1/3 of the capacity of the coach that can be used for the public transport. So, but I think this will be in the very, very short term, and I hope that this will not be the future scenario, because for tour operators, for travel agents, for the group travel, the really competitive advantage is to make buses full, to have the buses at least half or beyond half full. So otherwise, the final price for the passengers would be doubled or tripled. And in the medium long term, I hope it will not be the case. But I agree, in the very short term, there could be a need for more buses, more coaches for some kind of services.
How will this be? Thank you, Louis. How will this be in India, Mohammed? We know that the demand for transport in India is bigger in some regions than the supply, especially in the Chennai region where you come from. How will this work in India?
Well, here also the demand has risen. A lot of inquiries from the companies have started pouring in. But unfortunately, the government is insisting on operating with only 1/3 capacity of the employees. So I don't think the existing fleet, which we are going to operate for them, is only going to compensate towards the number of employees rather than adding on the number of fleets. So if we are operating 100 buses for a company, with 10,000 employees for a 3 shift. Here now they're going to operate 3,000 employees for all the 3 shifts. Then automatically the same number of buses will get utilized for it. Only thing is probably we are worried about the price factor, because every company has started speaking on the price factor. They want to reduce the maximum cost on the operations. So we really feel that though there may be a slight increase in the number of buses requirement, that could be for a short note period, but price-wise we may not be really supported very much. So that is one big worry, concern, because all said and done, every employee whether he's idle or he's going to operate, he has to be still paid. And with this type of an operation, we may not be able to make both ends meet. So that is a serious concern of discussion to be taken forward. We represent the government also for this.
I understand. Thank you for this contribution, Mohammed. Ladies and gentlemen, I propose that we go to our first poll right now. Hans, can you put the poll on the screen, please? We would like to know, compared to last year, how does your turnover this year look like? Is it up to 60 to 80% of last year's turnover in your company? I'm addressing specifically to the people addressing or managing a coach company here. Could you please fill in this questionnaire, and we'll publish the results in a minute from now. So we would like to know what your turnover looks like in, let's say, the last 2.5 to 3 months compared to the same period last year. We have about 200 replies now. I guess we close this poll now. Thank you, Hans. Could you please show us the results? So worldwide, we have about 900 people attending this seminar. We have a little over 200 answers specifically from coach companies. The big majority, over 50%, is telling us that their turnover is less than 20% of what it was last year. Only 5% of the people answering this are saying that they can keep up 80 to 100%. I'm not sure this is only on coach activities. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Let's go to the second part of this webinar, which is about cost reduction. What do you do to reduce costs during this time in order to maximize the possibilities of survival of your company in this crisis? Let's go for this first intervention to the United States. Bronwyn Wilson is the managing director for the for a group of 60 American and Canadian coach companies, the International Motor Coach Group. How is the American coach world trying to reduce costs, Bronwyn?
Good morning, all. Good morning from the west coast of the US. I hope everyone is safe and well in these challenging times. So with my colleagues, we're going to speak about costs and cost savings. Again, four key areas that we will focus on: staffing, finance, insurance, and processes. I'm going to speak a little bit about staffing. Of course, every country has different laws, so I'm going to speak a little bit about what's going on here in the US. As this crisis emerged, staffing became critical. The work, so many were placed on furlough, which means a promise to future work when we come back, or laid off. That allowed these staff to access unemployment from government. And with no work, that made sense. Now, with government funding being available to companies, again, different in every country around the world, many in the US are now bringing their staff back. But of course, we have no revenue generating jobs. So what do? Our valuable resources are drivers and mechanics, people that we have invested much training in the past, shortages in drivers for the last few years. So as we bring them back and focus on bringing those people back with the funds that governments are giving us to focus on payroll protection, we're looking at online training, revisiting skills, looking at the processes so that we can save money. And it's really a time to revisit our fundamentals, even for the most experienced of drivers or mechanics. How can we improve their skills and become more efficient when we recover? Additionally, because we now have drivers coming back into the workforce, I'm sensing that there's more reach out in the local community to do charity work, help our communities, and that will be a jumpstart also for our recovery as we help those in our communities going forward. So on staffing, very high level, Jan, I defer back to you for the others to comment on other costs. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Bronwyn from Los Angeles. Mark, I'm coming to you. Mark Anderson is the founder and the managing director of Anderson Travel in London based. You operate a fleet of about 40 vehicles and 100 employees, and you're also a board member of GPN. What does this specific time, Mark, allow coach companies to do in their search for cost reduction?
Thank you. We're just going to take control and put in our presentation now. Okay, thank you everybody. Good. Hello, wherever you are in the world, and thank you for this time to be able to do a little bit. We've talked in a lot of general principles at the moment. We're now going to drill down into some specifics in terms of cost savings. As you know, move on, I started Anderson Travel back in 1988 with one vehicle, and every day it would be fair to say that I'm at the coalface or in the vanguard of what we do. I sit in my office in the garage every day looking at what's happening and how the operation takes place. We have a depot both at central London, at downtown close to Tower Bridge, and a second depot out at Heathrow Airport. And as I said, I began the business with one vehicle back in 1988. If we move on to the next slide, what we have found, and we are guilty of this as much as everybody else, is that coach operators are very, very focused on generating business. They're also focused on operating that business that they have generated successfully. And then thirdly, they're not quite so clear on the costs associated with generating that business. There is a feeling amongst many that an empty yard or an empty garage, an empty depot, certainly means that you're making lots of money. 9 times out of 10, that might be the case, but are you really maximizing that profit at the time? So with the downtime that unfortunately this tragic pandemic has caused us, is the absolute time to start looking at your cost base and at what you're actually doing as an organization to make sure you keep your costs as low as possible. What is interesting is, and a survey I've done over the years has always been, if we've not been successful in getting a piece of business, I ring that potential client and I ask what went wrong. Always, 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 it's the price. And I've found between winning a piece of business and not winning the piece of business is always about 10%. It's only ever about 10%. But on the cost side, I've noticed that the actual costs of operating, you can be 20, 30, 40% different from your competitors in terms of cost. So this is a real opportunity now for people to drill down, look at their cost base within their own individual companies and see what savings they can make. What we've actually done at Anderson Travel is we've looked at 3 specifics for this presentation this afternoon, our time. We've looked at telecoms, we've looked at the workshop, and we've looked at staff rotas. And I will do it in that order, so I'm a little bit out of sync as far as the slides are concerned. In terms of telecoms, we've identified that in modern day coach operation, unfortunately, our drivers no longer use the coach phones themselves. What they actually do is use their own mobile phones. And our staff, when they're speaking to our drivers, are ringing them on their own mobile phones. Therefore, we've taken the decision, under the fact that a lot of contracts are now just with unlimited minutes for drivers, etc., that we don't really need quite so many mobile phones anymore. And we've also used this opportunity to shop around, find out what the best deal is. And we estimate quite conservatively that between now and the end of this year, we will save 35,000 UK pounds in terms of both our mobile phones and our office phones, which we've also changed at the same time. Shop around. Our customers will be shopping around for coaches when the gear up back to some sort of normality is there. The opportunity is there now because there's lots of people after business, and the opportunity is there now to try and get the best deal for your own business. If I move on to the second thing, which we'll do, which is the workshop. And the workshop, to an awful lot of people in on this webinar, is an Aladdin's cave of mystery. The person with saintliness within your organization will be the fleet engineer. And that is exactly rightly so. If the fleet engineer tells you that a vehicle is not fit for service or needs to have some work on it, religiously we say, yes, go ahead and do it. However, if you spend some time actually in that workshop now that there is downtime, you will find lots of things that can be improved and lots of things that can be looked at in terms of saving money. Workshop engineers never want to give anything away or give anything up. So we have found parts that we no longer knew that we had for vehicles that we no longer have, and vehicles that were no longer produced. The last time they were produced was something like 20 years ago. Consequently, with a little bit of ability on eBay, we're managing to sell those parts on now because we will never need them again. Similarly, we found a large bath in the back of one of the workshops, and we looked at it. We thought about it and we thought, what's this for? Oh, it's for cleaning parts, we were told. When was it last used? 4 months ago, because we have this new thing in place. A quick look at our accounting system, and we're still paying for that. So to my shame, again, we've stopped that contract and we've made specific savings. The other thing that we've done is, if we move on to number 3, which is staff rotas, and this is quite interesting. And I'm just going to move on now. This is the actual Anderson Travel allocation, which comes in 3 bits for the corresponding Thursday last year. When I downloaded this yesterday for the presentation, I must admit I cried my eyes out because we were absolutely full. And at the same time, if I did one for today, the corresponding Thursday this year, it would be one blank piece of paper. If you look at it, you will see the driver names on the left. You will then see the allocation of work, and then you will see the jobs and the type of vehicle and the registration numbers of the vehicles. Everything we do is computerized using a standard package that is available and is used by about 90% of UK coach operators. The package is called Coach Manager. We use that for the diary. We use that for the accounting packages. We use that for our maintenance schedules, but what we don't use it for is for the allocation of work. The allocation of work relies upon the experience and the talent and the know-how of 3 key members of my team. Those members are the transport managers that allocate the work for the next day or for the next 3, 4, 5 days ahead. 3 of them working, 2 at our Tower Bridge depot, 1 at Heathrow Airport. Fantastic guys, really talented. And as most of our staff have been furloughed, one thing you're allowed to do in our country under furlough is training. So I set them a little task of doing some allocations as best they can. And I sent them this allocation. And would you believe it? They came back, all 3 of them, with a different way of working it. Even the guy that had done it last year came back with a different idea this time. So consequently, that got me thinking that there has to be some savings. Which one of the 3 of them was doing it best? Which one of the 3 of them saved us the most money? And already now, we've looked at a rolling situation in the morning, which means that there is a slight overlap from driver to driver, but most importantly, it reduces the need for that standby driver, that guy that sits in your driver's room and drinks tea and gets paid for it and washes the odd vehicle that isn't needed. We estimate on that we will save somewhere in the region of £60,000 a year already, just using that simple delay process as we do the allocations. So to conclude, everybody, this is a very, very difficult time, a very difficult time for everybody, but there is a grey lining out there, and that is the ability now to actually delve down into the nuts and bolts of your own organizations and be able to see and understand the cost base that you're operating with and what opportunities you have. And there are plenty of opportunities to reduce those costs going forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mark. That was a very interesting contribution. Thank you so much for that. You were talking about getting rid of tools and features that you use no longer, but that might be a cost in your company. We have also been in contact with several other companies, mostly digital companies, software producers, saying that this is also the time to try new tools that you are not using yet. And some platforms, some companies offer their services in this period actually for free. You can use it during a couple of months exactly for free. There is a company like don'ttravelempty.com who gives their software, which you can try for a couple of months. Maybe you have the time now to do it and explore new possibilities as well, which is the other thing of what you just said, Mark. But definitely most interesting to investigate the possibilities in both ways.
Thank you.
Let's go to India again. Mohammed, how in India are you trying to reduce your costs in your coach operations?
Yeah, Mark was quite clear enough in how we should bring down our cost in-house. Apart from the cost bringing out in-house, there are various other factors which actually eat away our business profits. In the past more than 1 year, if you see, the competition has risen all over. Travel and tourism has really drastically come down. And at this part of the pandemic period, we have been working with the government to see that furthermore how we can really get the support of the government to reduce the costs. One few of these, which I can just read out. We have given representations to the government of India requesting for support with the employee salaries for the next 3 months. It may also get extended up to 6 months if the COVID issue gets stretched forward. So there is enough ESI and PF funds in the kitty. We've asked the government to work on it and give us support to the operators in the form of advances, which can be repaid in the next 2 years. without interest. This is one effort we have to put in, and the government is working on it. Hopefully, we'll be getting some good results on it. Similarly, if you see the road taxes are quite huge in India. Each coach we end up paying between 3 to 4 lakh rupees every 3 months. So, and most of these coaches we have already prepaid, which we have not utilized. So we have gone back to the government to adjust this tax towards the forthcoming operational days for at least another 6 months. This is one way of supporting us for the capital to be infused like. And then there are huge toll costs. In India, the toll cost is more than the road taxes. So here also we have asked for at least waiving the toll taxes for the next 3 months. Cess is once again, you know how the crude oil prices has come down drastically. Here we have asked the government to look upon, because today in India, it is still nearing $1 per liter. It's almost about 70 plus per liter of diesel, where we asked them to consider on the cess concessions. The vehicle insurance is one more part where the insurance already paid for the entire year, and we have not utilized these vehicles. We have asked the insurance company, the IRDA, which is the regulatory authority of India, to consider our non-operational days and stretch our insurance further with the same renewal for another period of 3 to 6 months. PPP is one of the major sectors in North India under public-private partnership. The key success to the several economic around the world in India has been boon to mobility sector with enormous success. Request has been made to the government to support us with a minimum assured business, clear the previous dues, render financial support to keep the industry alive and restart. So most of these are pertaining to the government, because all this is about covering almost 65% of our fixed costs. Variable cost is only the fuel and the mechanic and the maintenance, whereas 65% of our cost is all fixed cost, and all these fixed costs are linked to these verticals. The other one is the GST part, and the final one is the financial assistance requested. We have made a request to the finance ministry to give a waiver on the interest part for the loans for the moratorium given. Today, the moratorium is being given for about 3 months, but unfortunately, the interest is carried across. So as a result, at the end of 36 months, you end up paying 39 months of EMI because the interest keeps loading on it. So we've requested RBI to reconsider on the interest portion so that we get some sort of a saving out of this. And finally, we have also approached the banks to support us by 20% of a capital infusion in form of working capital. So these are the efforts which we have been putting on in part of the Indian operations to on one side to save the cost, and on the other side to restart our business once again. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mohammed. That was a very clear overview of the posts where you see that you can use some aid. Tommy, what are you trying to do in Morocco?
Actually, we have attended many meetings with other members of the Moroccan Federation of Touristic Transport, and we concluded that the most important costs to reduce are loans and insurance for us, because Moroccan government have taken many measurements, and they did fantastic work to save jobs, so there's no problem with drivers right now. The oil is down at the moment, so it's okay. But the biggest problem we are facing are banks and insurance companies. So since the beginning of the lockdown, we have taken many measurements in this objective. So for the insurance, for example, we have cancelled contracts of insurance of 30% of our fleet, and turned some touristic coaches into staff transportation coaches, which cost lower for insurance. Also, all the coaches with contracts are cancelled and parked in the garage, but we didn't modify anything from the garage insurance contract in case of major damages, like such as fire, etc. So like that, we have saved around 30%, 40% of the total amount of insurance in normal conditions, but there's still many things to explore and to reduce more and more, because it's very complicated this moment.
Okay, thank you, Tommy. I hear it actually from friends worldwide that reduction of insurance costs is quite an important issue to do. Brian, you're focusing more on your relationship with the banks.
Yes, that is correct. So we have been working with our bank, in accordance with the government to reschedule our debt. So basically, we would still pay the same amount, just in a longer period. So between 3 months from now, we won't have to pay any of our interest payment. So zero on the payment for the next 3 months. And then after that, then they will consider, if we will only pay interest, or we'll pay the whole amount, for each month, after the 3 months. In addition to that, we are allowed to take out a 0% interest loan to cover 50% of our employees' salary for the next 3 months. So that has been a huge help. We've been working with the government to come up with that idea, and it does not only help us, but all other operators in Vietnam, because we are having a huge problem paying our employees, because frankly we don't have any buses on the road. For tourist bus, we are operating at about, I think, less than 20% of our whole fleet. So paying all the drivers and back offices employees has been our biggest cost that we're able to somewhat solve with working with the bank and the government.
I understand. Okay, thank you so much, Brian. I understand that the payment of the salaries for your coworkers is in most parts of the world your first priority. Louis, I'm coming back to you. In your relationship with the banks, do you find some help, some support from government side?
Yes, yes, we do. Although many companies, or some companies, are struggling to postpone or have a moratorium of the debt. The government in Spain has offered or is issuing a guarantee for loans. That means the government will be guaranteeing 80% of the amount of the loan. The length of the loan can be from 1 to 5 years. It is the possibility. There is a possibility of having a 1-year moratorium of the capital amortization, not the interest. But I see a problem, because there is a maximum amount that you can request of a 25% of last year's sales in your company. That means that could be good for many businesses, but for businesses like coach companies, which are intensive in capital investment in coaches, or maybe the airlines as well, it is difficult with that amount to survive for some of us, and that's why from the National Federation, or ANETRA, we're trying to request the government to open a new line of guarantees for this capital investment, so we can, which would be different from the regular line. But there is a support from the government in these guaranteed loans, which are really being requested by most of the companies.
Thank you so much. What I understand from this part of the session is that cost reduction that is related to the vehicles has mostly to do with insurance costs and taxes. costs for your employees, you're looking for support with the banks and with government aid worldwide. And then for the rest of the costs that might be related to paying suppliers and to your depot, you're also referring to loans, cheaper loans, 0% in Vietnam, we hear, to take care of these costs. Thank you very much for this part. I'm going back to Hannes to launch the second poll, please, Hannes, where we are trying to figure out worldwide as a coach operator, what cost reduction have you been able to realize in this period? We are actually very clearly referring to the cost reduction. What savings have you realized? Not what kind of the cost is maintained, but what did you get rid of? What percentage did you get rid of? We're taking a minute to fill this out, and then we will relate the result of this poll to the result of the first poll, where you mentioned what kind of turnover that you are keeping. The results of these polls will be clearly published on the websites as well. Okay, let's take 30 more seconds to okay, that's it. We are about at 200 participants as well again here. Hans, can you show us the results? So if we compare this to the first poll, where 54% clearly mentioned that their turnover has reduced under 20% of the turnover last year, we see that cost savings here in the biggest group can be realized up to 40%, maybe up to 60%. A very big part, 1/3 of you all cannot reduce costs under 20%. So this is very interesting to relate this to the income poll. Thank you very much, everybody, for participating. I'm going to conclude this session. Thank you very much, everybody, for participating. Thank you very much to the speakers. It's been great to talk to you all. Your input has been very valuable. Thanks a lot to the Global Passenger Network for your collaboration in this session. Before we definitely close or finally close it, we will launch one more poll to see how we can continue with those webinars, how pleased you are with it. And I take the opportunity to invite you all for the session next week on Thursday, 3 o'clock European time. And there we're going to talk about the restart of bus and coach operations worldwide. What hygienic criteria will there be? How will we work on that? And what will be the criteria in the different countries? Thank you very much to everybody.
Jan?
Yes.
While polling is going on, can I just request you whether the World Bank can come forward to understand the financial scenario of all the coach operators all over the world and come out with some corpus funding sort of support? World Bank?
Good idea, Mohammed. In next week's seminar, we will have the participation of the New York Metropolitan Transport Authority. We will have the participation of BOKI. We will have the participation of the Minister for Transportation in Brussels. And we will have one testimonial from a Chinese city, big Chinese city, which has restarted the bus operations yet. But it is a good idea to invite a development bank as well. Although we have to say that the development banks can give support in infrastructure, not really in the operations of vehicles, but we'll definitely look out for that. Thank you so much, everybody. I hope to see everybody again last week. The questions will be answered by the speakers, and it will be published on the Busworld Academy website. Thank you, and see you next week.